Yeah, welcome once again. So this is a continuation of historical emergence of human resources management. Then under this continuation, we'll be talking about some of the functions that human resources manager performs in an organization. So I think we're together. So I haven't listened to the first lesson. So under this second lesson, we'll be talking about various title or names by which human resources management was originally known, then recall the reason for the adoption of each of these titles. So these are the two major things we'll be talking about in lesson two, since it is a continuation of human resources management historical emergence. Then one more thing is we'll be talking about some of the functions that were being performed by human resources management in this area. So after some decades, it was observed among workers that some of them were so hardworking and committed. So as a result, they need to be treated separately. So extra efforts need to be put in on them so that they could be performing in a superficial way. That is to put some kind of extra effort. So, but this can only be done through extra profit that the employers put or the employers gain, and they put it on the worker through compensation. So this particular era, human resources management was called labor staff administration. Why? Because it reflects the status of a very few they were on permanent employment, and the workers placed on permanent employment were fewer, while bulk of them were on a, on a temporary. So those one placed on a permanent were just few, but majority of them are on temporary. So for you to get the super performance from them, so you have to put some kind of extra effort because the numbers are not just to. So contrary to the orientation of Fred Taylor and Henry Fayolle, who treated labor very cheap, we see them as being manipulated them, we see them as a robot. You understand me? So this now led Mayo to embark on a research exercise titled Routine Study. So to find out if labor is cheap. So our ideology then of Mayo was why is Fred Taylor with this concept of terrorism treating a human being like a machine and see them to be very very cheap. So we now find out we now conduct a study which we call eating study to find out if truly labor are very very cheap. So in the study they find out that autocratic leadership uh, does not make workers to contribute more into the organization production. So for their insensitivity to plight, so the manner was discovered that workers tend to work well, cooperate and show total loyalty to leaders who adopt democratic style. So when we say democratic style, that means it has sense of recognition, sense of belonging, and see workers to have sense of ownership on the job. So when you see them in this way, it gives the workers some sign of recognition, and they are able to have total commitment into the organizational proceed. So in view of this discovery by Etimeyo, so it changed the title of managing of people at workplace to what we call personnel administration. So that means you have to administer them in a very way. And how do you do that? One, by working well with them, by cooperating with them, by showing them some kind of total loyalty through a democratic leadership style. And it says this will make the workers to have some kind of recognition, makes them to have sense of belonging, and makes them to have some sense of ownership on the job administration. So the end of the First and Second World War caused drastic and acute shortage of manpower globally. After the World War, so many men were dead, women were killed during the war. So the supply of workforce was very short. So and it becomes a global challenge now in terms of a demand. So the global workforce became agitated and making excessive demand from their employers in an attempt to recoup most of their properties that they have lost during the war. So the agitation became so intense that the General Administration of Office and the extension of chief executive officers that were handling labor matters could no longer manage the situation effectively. So as a result, the industrial psychologists agree on the change of labor matter in organization, so which eventually now leads to what we call personnel management, looking at the trend of human resources management in that paradigm. So the story continued up to 1980s. So dating cultural incidents such as agitation for better pay, good working condition, high interest rate, unemployment rate, crystallized the labor in the 1980s. So with the entire contextual incident. So human resources management practitioner and professional changed the title for the function of managing people at workplace to human resources management to reflect the wider scope and more complex activities involved in the function of workers in an organization. So thus the personnel administration change to what we call human resources management. So the question that's one of the students asks now, which is not clear, it's not that edible, is what are the functions that human resources management does in an organization? So one of the functions that human resource management does is human resources planning, staffing, which has to do with recruitment, selection, and placement, human resource development, which has to do with training and development, career development, talent management, and organization development. Also, to look at performance appraiser. So, how did you evaluate your workers in order to give them what they need in the area of compensation or sending them on training? So, you also look at the area of recruitment, area of reward and compensation. Then exit administration, which is still very new now, that is managing of a retirement, resignation of people that works in an organization. So these are some of the functions that human resources and management perform in contemporary organization. So thank you for that question. Though your voice is not that eligible, but I'm able to deduce one or two things from what you to ask. So in summary, so we've traced the origin uh, title given to the function of managing people at work, from labor administration up to labor staff administration, and to the third nomenclature of personnel management, and the fourth one of personnel management, and now to the current nomenclature of function of human resources management at the workplace. So not just tracing the apogee of the name of managing people in a place of work, but also talking about the function they perform based on the question that was asked by Jubril. Yeah, thank you, Jubril. So at least in that we can go further to look at the difference between the personnel management and human resources management in our next lesson, which is lesson 3. So thank you very much, and God bless you for having me today.